Welcome to another edition of the Pub Sports Radio College Basketball Net Profit Show, Wednesday, February the 8th. Ian Cameron, Conor Mack, ready to break down the Wednesday card. It's a big slate. We got a lot of marquee games, so we're going to jump right into the show, and we'll begin with Nebraska, Michigan in the Big Ten. Michigan laying a big number here, 11.5 point home favorites, 137.5 the total in this game. Michigan, of course, playing here at the Chrysler Center at home in Ann Arbor. 9-3 they are at home coming into this game. A nice home win against Ohio State, a struggling Buckeyes team, but nevertheless a good home win there. Nebraska, they shockingly beat Penn State 72-63. It's shocking because they had really been roughed up, double-digit losses in 4 straight games before beating Penn State at home 72-63 in their last game. We'll see if they can follow that up here in this meeting against Michigan. It is worth noting last year, Nebraska was double-digit dogs at Michigan. They lost by 6, covered the number in defeat in that game, but they are a banged-up bunch right now. They've already been without Jawan Gary. They've already been without, Ramel Lloyd Jr. It looks like Emmanuel Bondamel is now out for the season due to a knee injury that he suffered. So you understand it's a banged-up team. It's a really impossible game. I don't want to lay this many with Michigan, but I don't know if I trust Nebraska enough. They did beat Penn State, so if you do and you believe that they can hang like they did it in Ann Arbor last year, maybe you do take the points with the Cornhuskers, but I'm going to pump the brakes on that. Better spots than this. What do you think here, Conor?
Nebraska 1-10 the last 11 on the road. Is this enough? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they shoot well enough. This is a game I think they could hang around. And maybe Michigan, unless they're not right out of, could be a little sleep in this one. But I still think they should take care of business of them at home. Yeah, I don't want this game really at all. I mean, if I really had to, I'd lean to Michigan, but I really don't want to lay 11 with them.
All right, we've got next up here, Creighton, Seton Hall in the Big East. Creighton 3-point road favorites. The total sitting at 134.5 pretty much across the board in this game. You look at this matchup here, I think Creighton's just pretty cheap here. I think they can go in and win this game on the road. I did lay the 2.5, the 3. Actually, I took the money line at -145. It's -150 in some spots, but I like Creighton here. I just think they're capable of going on the road, winning this game. They've been a different team for the most part with Kalkbrenner back, Nembhard, the great guard as well. Great inside-outside balance. Seton Hall can go in and out of scoring droughts. That's always the issue with them this throughout the course of the season. I think, and defense has been decent at times for Seton Hall, but Creighton can really play good defensive basketball as well when they need to. So when it's all said and done, I like I think the number's cheap here a little bit. If this was a higher point spread, maybe I'd pump the brakes on Creighton, but laying only 3 and able to take a money line with them at -145, I thought that was the way to go. Creighton getting the W here on the road. What do you think here, Conor?
Yeah, this one's difficult. Creighton finally, back healthy, been playing better basketball. I like how they've played defensively. Usually they are better at home. I look at this under. I've been looking at it all day. The last few years, it's kind of been split. There's a few unders, a few overs. But Seton Hall at home, I don't think they're going to light it up. We know their offense isn't great. So, yeah, I like this under. 134.5. I think Seton Hall could be in this one. I think Davis plays. He's questionable.
Yep.
But I think he goes with his ankle.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he will too. So, yeah, I like this under here in this one.
Yeah, I'll be brief with this next game. I only put it on there because it's a major conference game. Notre Dame and Georgia Tech. We've got Notre Dame 1-point road favorites, 130. There's no freaking way I'm taking Notre Dame. Okay, if I had to, I'd take Georgia Tech because at least with Georgia Tech, their last game against NC State, they lost, but they at least covered. They at least showed some signs of competitiveness. So I'd lean Georgia Tech, but there's no need to bet this game. These are two horrendous teams that are reeling, not going really anywhere, either team. But if you had to make a bet on this game, I'd lean slightly to the Yellow Jackets, but I'm passing. Clearly want to make that known. What do you think here, Conor?
Yeah, earlier Notre Dame beat them by 1. Georgia Tech, they've just been so bad. They are at home, so I do like that. This one's tough. I'm going to pass too. If I were to free bet, though, I'd probably take Tech, and I don't love it. In the end, this team hasn't won in a very long time. But maybe this is a shot, especially if they can hold Notre Dame. They're, you mentioned it throughout the year, and defensively, Georgia Tech just isn't the same team as in years past. Notre Dame shots don't go here. I think Georgia Tech could be in it, and maybe a game at home after so many L's, they can get a W here. So yeah, free bet. I'd look Georgia Tech.
All right, Syracuse and Florida State. We've got Syracuse 3.5-point road favorites, 149.5 the total in this game. This is the rematch of actually these teams haven't played yet this year. Florida State won at Syracuse last year, and Syracuse won at Florida State last year. So the road team won both meetings. Syracuse coming off a win and cover on the road against Boston College in their last game. We'll see if they can follow that up here against the Seminoles, who've lost 3 of their last 4. And the last win was a very unconvincing 3-point win against a Louisville team that just had their doors blown off them last night by Pittsburgh. So that's not exactly a ringing endorsement here for Florida State in this game. I think I lean to Syracuse here again. I took Syracuse, and I haven't bet Syracuse on the road very much, but I did take them against Boston College. They rewarded me. I think I might come back to them here. Syracuse minus the 3.5. And I like the over. I like the total even more, honestly. I mean, the side, I bet Syracuse. I've got more on the over. I think the over is the best bet here in this game. 3 straight overs for Florida State. Back to that struggling defense that they've had the early part of the season. They were really awful at that end of the floor, and they're starting to revert back to that. Those ugly defensive numbers are creeping back for Florida State. So Syracuse should be able to make some shots. But on the flip side here, I think Florida State, the one thing they have been able to do at home is score some points. Remember the Clemson game over the total. They scored 81 on their home floor in that game. So I like over 149.5 here a lot. What do you think here, Conor? Syracuse, Florida State.
Yeah, I think it can creep over. I don't think I'm going to be on it, but you mentioned Syracuse. They should be able to score. Florida State's just fallen off defensively. I mean, it's just pretty rough. The Olay defense, as I like to say, just has been there, especially the last couple of weeks. I think Syracuse can knock. I think Florida State can be in this one. They didn't cover. They got blown out a week ago when we had them. Barely beat Louisville. So, yeah, I'd lean over. I think Syracuse can win, too. The teams, the last few, like you mentioned, BC, they had another road win. Maybe it was Tech. They've gone on the road and won. The teams they should go in and win, they have. So it's just now at 3.5. I don't really love it, even though I think the Qs can win. I just don't want to let 3.5 on the road.
All right, Boston College, Virginia Tech. We've got Va Tech 13-point home favorites, 135 the total. You know what's funny about the total here? BC's gone over 4 of the last 5. Virginia Tech's gone over in 4 straight. Totally different offensive team since Couture came back, and a better team, obviously, with him back. And the series history has trended over the total. 7-1 to the over in the last 8 meetings between the Hokies and the Eagles. BC's also covered 5 straight. And this is a revenge spot for Virginia Tech. They lost in December at Boston College in overtime, 70-65. But look at all these recent meetings. There's been no evidence of Virginia Tech beating this team by this kind of margin. So I kind of have to look Boston College and kind of have to look at the over, because if you look at everything we've seen with these two teams head to head, it's been BC covering the number. It's been the game going over the total. And you've got two teams trending that way right now in their recent games as well. Conor, what do you think?
Yeah, they have. Just to touch on it real quick, there's been a lot of overs lately. Obviously, huge, they go in cycles. And I do like a few unders, obviously. Every night there'll be some.
Nuts with the overs, tons of overs.
Yeah, and you know what? I didn't play the Rutgers under. I did play the Michigan State, though, and that worked out. And there's a few, but you're right. It just seems, I don't know, the last 10 days, ton of efficiency and on overs. I'm going to not play this total in this one. I think Virginia Tech wins. Boston College, just not the same team as they are at home and on the road, but this is a lot. Can they score enough? I think Langford he's been playing. He hasn't really looked the same. He's questionable, it seems like, every time out there, but I think he needs to be in. They just don't shoot it well enough for me to really back them catching the 13. You shoot under 30% from 3, 72 from the free throw line. I don't want you as a road dog right now.
All right, we got Tennessee and Vanderbilt now in the SEC. Tennessee 10-point road favorites here, total at 134.5 across the board in this game. Tennessee, of course, looking to keep their pretty strong season going, 19-4. They bounced back from the road loss at Florida for an ugly win against Auburn at home, 46-43. I mean, they were setting offense back 50 years in that game. But nevertheless, they got the win they needed to bounce back. We'll see if they can keep it going here against Vanderbilt. Tennessee is, not exactly pulled away from Vanderbilt in some of these games. You look at the last three meetings going back to the start of 2022. Tennessee won all three games, but the margins were 8, 9, and 9. Okay, so it's right around where this number is. I mean, I'm not comfortable laying 10 in this game. Lean slightly to Vanderbilt here for me at plus 10. Look, Tennessee's failed to cover in 2 straight. You can't say that their offense has been any good in the last 2 games. They're shooting just 36 for 131 in their last 2 games. That's horrible offensive shooting numbers for the Volunteers in their last 2 games. Now, Vanderbilt will give up points. We've seen that on full display, and they haven't been great point spread wise either. But, as dogs here against catching a healthy number, a Tennessee team that, again, the last 3 victories they've had over Vanderbilt have been by less of a margin than this point spread right now. So, I don't have a strong opinion on Vanderbilt, but I lean that way for sure. Conor, what do you think?
Yeah, that was an ugly one with Auburn, and I think that can happen with this Tennessee team. And I think we might see it some more as the year goes on. They could have struggles shooting it, especially against solid teams that can play defense. This is a rivalry always, and Vandy is better at home. In the end, I couldn't get there. I think Tennessee wins this one, but I'm not going to lay 10 with them. I think if you want Vandy, I think Wright, though, has to play. He's too big, too much of a scorer, especially when this team has struggled to score. I mean, they scored, 44? Was it at Bama in that blowout? And now Tennessee, we know one thing, the defense should come to play. So if he's not in, there's just no way you could play him. So if he's in, maybe look Vandy, but I still don't love it.
All right, Iowa State, West Virginia in the Big 12. West Virginia 3.5-point home favorites here in Morgantown. 135 is the total here in this one. This has the feel of that West Virginia game against TCU back on January 18th, where you've got the unranked team favored at home against the ranked team, and that's what you've got here with West Virginia against Iowa State. I don't love this spot for the Cyclones, and I've liked this team a lot, but they're coming off the big win against Kansas at home. Back on the road now. They've lost to Texas Tech, Missouri, and Oklahoma State. 3 straight road games, 4 straight road games if you go back to Kansas. So winning games on the road has not been something they've been able to do. West Virginia starting to show signs of improvement late in the season, which sometimes you get from a team with a veteran coach like Bob Huggins. They've won 3 of their last 4 games. They've gotten home wins against TCU, Auburn, a blowout home win against Oklahoma in their last game. It just feels like, it's an unranked home team favored, but favored for a reason in this spot, especially with Iowa State, a potential letdown after the huge victory against Kansas at Hilton over the weekend. So West Virginia's favored for a reason. I'd go that route if I had to. I don't love the number, but it's West Virginia or pass for me. Conor, what do you think?
Yeah, if this was over a month ago, I wouldn't do this with West Virginia playing better basketball. Won 3 of 4 and playing well. And this team, this total, we know Iowa State can come with their defense. I got to stay off this one. I know it's going to show up. And West Virginia, good pace and really over. And they're not the same defensive team. So even a team like Iowa State can at times struggle to score, especially on the road, more on the road than home. Yeah, I'm going to stay off the total. I think it could go either way here, and I'd probably lean over because West Virginia's at home in this one. And you mentioned Iowa State off the big win to Kansas. I don't want them here.
All right, Memphis, South Florida. We've got Memphis 6-point road favorites, 156.5 now the total in this game, which has been bet up quite a bit. It's hard not to because Memphis, you talk about ugly defense. 2 of the last 3 games, they've given up 80+. South Florida against teams that are pretty good offensively, they can give up points, and they're a better offensive team. We've said this all year about South Florida. They've kind of changed their spots. They've been an over machine, 8-2 in their last 10 games. So I agree with the move up in the total. It's getting up there, but I understand why people bet it from 153 to 156.5. I like the over a bit. I got to lean South Florida as a home dog. Memphis has just not been good laying points lately. South Florida's covered 4 of the last 5. They've given Memphis a tough game for the most part in every recent meeting. between these two teams. Back in December, it was a 7-point win for Memphis at home, 93-86. That game flew over the total as well. 179 points scored in that game, and the total was 140. So for me, it's dog and over in this game. Connor, any thoughts here?
Yeah, the total's creeping up. I still, I don't know if it's getting high up there. I think the game though is high 70s, 80s though, whether it gets there or not. South Florida, this team can score all of a sudden. Memphis though in this conference has been pretty good on the road where they've taken care of teams they should. And this line's pretty sharp. I lean South Florida. I want to take them. God damn. I wish this was 8.5, 9.5 to really back them. But I think that's the way to look. I don't trust Memphis, at all. I don't want to lay points with them full game here. Defense is too bad, and they give up too many lates, as it showed in the Tulane game. So that could keep South Florida in it. And a team that's better shooting it and that can score, that always had problems. So, yeah, I'm leaning South Florida in this one.
Yeah, and as we saw in the Tulane game on Saturday, and I was happy as I had Tulane in the over there. Penny Hardaway can't adjust and make and get his team.
He's not a great coach.
Time worth of shit. No, he can't. Tulane just took over that game in the second half, and it's like we're winning this basketball game in Memphis, no less. He's just not
good
a great
recruiter
guy.
Yeah, exactly. Not a great X and O. Good recruiter. Not the best, maybe. X and O's.
Exactly, and that's what we're seeing on full display. Georgetown and Providence. We got Providence here laying a big number at home, 13, 147 the total in this game. I'm passing. It's just, but although I will say Georgetown's covered 6 straight, so they've done a nice job, getting inside the number. The Providence though has just found this way of even as bigger home favorites, still winning, still covering. Against the lesser teams, DePaul, Butler. They have really run roughshod over the weaker teams and still won and covered. It's probably the one thing that's keeping me off the Georgetown side. Like I've taken Georgetown with the points in a lot of these games recently. I lean that way here, but Providence is kind of that team where they're just so well coached. They're so fundamentally sound. And after a crushing loss at Xavier in their last game, they might want to put up, expel some frustrations on this Georgetown team. So I'm passing. I was initially interested in Georgetown. I still lean that way because they've been on this point spread covering streak, but not enough to pull the trigger. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is just a tough one to get involved with, especially if you've been riding Georgetown. They've been covering, but Providence off the loss. But one thing with Providence, they win this game is do they win big? I just love it as a dog or a short favorite. Could they win by 20? For sure. But could this be by 10? Maybe. Georgetown's hung around with them at times the last couple of years and have looked better. So I think you just pass. If you had to, I'd maybe lean the points like you were talking about.
All right, next up, we've got Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. The Oklahoma State Cowboys, 6.5-point home, 6-point home favorites, 136 the total in this game. I was wondering if Texas Tech was going to go on a bit of a run. Coming off what we saw in the last game against, or the game in the Big 12 SEC Challenge against LSU. They did. They beat Iowa State, that big comeback to beat the Cyclones. But they fell short and got whipped in the second half after a pretty good first half out of Texas Tech, and then it just fell apart for them in the second half. They get romped by Baylor, 89-62 on Saturday. They'll be looking to bounce back from that debacle in the second half here tonight against Oklahoma State. Oddly enough, look, Oklahoma State, very good defensive team. Suddenly now 4 straight games have gone over. The offense has sprung to life, and the defense hasn't been nearly as good. So for that reason, I lean over here, 136. I think I'll have a bet on it. I think it can get over the total. Texas Tech has gone over in 3 straight, and the over is cashed in 6 of the last 7 head-to-head meetings between these two teams. Texas Tech does fall into that angle I mentioned, though, where, they were earlier this season. They had a home loss to Oklahoma State, 52. Actually, that was last year, so throw that out. The last meeting I'm looking at was last March. So this is the first meeting this year between these two teams. So throw that out. But, you look at the head-to-head series, Oklahoma State hasn't beaten this team by more than 5 points in a very long time. So, I still lean a little bit to Tech here, plus the points in this game. But the over appeals to me even more. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, question mark still with Tech, with Isaacs. But for some reason, I stayed off this game. These teams just are similar. Maybe this year it's a little bit different. Tech, maybe their defense hasn't been great. But when I look at these two teams, both teams struggle to score when you run through everything. Okay, defensively, obviously Oklahoma State's been better for the most part. So tough for me. Oklahoma State been good at home, where we stretched out to 6 here. I really don't want to lay a team like that with 6 lane that shoots the ball that bad. So if I had to, I'd take Tech, but I'm long off here.
All right, we've got Tulsa, Houston. Houston, 28-point home favorites. Wow, 139.5 the total in this one. It's a huge number, but then you start to look at Tulsa here on the road. They get whipped by Cincy by 26. ECU beats them by 10. Tulane whips them by 16. SMU whips them by 25. Maybe there is a pathway for Houston to win this game by upwards of 30 points, but it's a lot of points. Too many for me to want to lay here with this Houston Cougars team, a Houston team that's actually failed to cover in 3 of their last 5 games coming into tonight. I do like points, though. 4 straight overs for Houston. We know Tulsa's been an over machine. They can't stop anybody. They give up 80 points per game on average this season, actually 76.9, but the field goal percentage allowed is 326th in the country. Houston should score at will. Tulsa should be able to score enough against Houston. I keep saying about Houston, they're not playing lockdown, just lock you down defense, the Cougars. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're just, it's the lethargic nature of a long conference season, but they're not possession to possession playing that stifling defense that we've become accustomed to. So for that reason, I think Tulsa can do enough as well to help us out. I like over 139.5. Connor, what do you think?
I think can Tulsa get 65 or 60 to right there to maybe get this over?
Oh, if they get 60, it's going over because I think Houston's going to get 80.
It should. Yeah, because I think they get 80. So you're just hoping they get over 60, I'm thinking, because they get right around that number. But I don't know if they do. I'd lean to that over and just pat. I don't want anything here. I don't want Tulsa even with the points right now. They're just that bad defensively.
Houston won 89-50 in the first meeting in December. So we'll see if there's an encore performance coming up from Houston here. It won by 39, and that was at Tulsa. So that helps to also explain why they're laying 28 here in this one. All right, Central Florida and Wichita State, another AAC matchup. Wichita State won up to 2.5-point home favorites here, 133.5 the total in this game. Wichita State, of course, just recently actually played Houston on their home floor and made it a game. It was a tough one for Houston. Wichita was in it start to finish. They lost by 11. They lost by 9 in that game, 71-60. They beat Tulsa on the road, 86-75 in their last game. They've become an over machine. I hate to be a broken record here, but I kind of look that way again. Hey, we had a shit ton of overs last night, so I'm not, sitting on the fence with these over opinions tonight after what we saw last night. We're just seeing a lot of efficiency and a lot of good shooting across the board right now. So I like over at a very modest 133.5 here in this game. UCF is struggling, 5 straight losses straight up in ATS. I think it's a Wichita spot. Money line for me. I like the Shockers here. Revenge spot too, as UCF beat them 52-45 back in December. I like Wichita State here. Money line minus 140 and over the total. Connor, what do you think?
I mean, unless they get back to, the old game of these teams where I don't see it. I'd have to be over too. Other than that Houston game, you get, it would have just stayed under this number. Wichita playing a different pace, scoring a lot more. I'd be on them too. UCF needs a win bad, but I don't know if it's here. The struggle just continues. So I'd be on Wichita and I'd lean over.
New along Wisconsin, Penn State. We've got Penn State, 4-point home favorites, 126 the total here in this matchup. I don't know what happened to Penn State against Nebraska on Sunday, but that was a horrible performance from them. The good news is they return home to Happy Valley, where they're 11-1 on this home floor this year. We'll see if they can bounce back. They might be able to, because Wisconsin is just 4 out of their last 5. They have lost, and they're on a brutal 1-9 against the point spread, losing skid in their last 10 games. Penn State's covered 3 in a row against Wisconsin, even though Wisconsin won all 3 games. But how about the margins? Wisconsin by 1, Wisconsin by 2, Wisconsin by 3 in the last 3 head-to-head meetings against Penn State. I don't know. I'd lean Wisconsin. It's 2 teams that I don't trust. Flip a coin, take the points is what I say.
Yeah.
So I lean Wisconsin. I don't think I'll be betting it, though. Connor, anything here?
That's how I feel. It seems like when these teams get together, it's just tight. And we don't have the totals pretty sure because these games just seems like they just get to 60. So I'm not going to mess around there, even though I lean to the under. And I think the points are value, even though Wisconsin team, it's tough to back. Yeah, if I had that free bet, I'd take the points if I had to.
All right, next up, we continue along here. DePaul, Villanova. Villanova here, 9.5-point home favorites, 141 the total in this one. Villanova, of course, trying to get some traction. They've lost 3 in a row against Providence. Brutally tough schedule, though. Providence, Marquette, Creighton, those are like 3 of the best teams in the conference. And I thought they played well at Creighton. I took the points with Villanova against Creighton. They got inside the number for me in a 66-61 loss on the road at Creighton. Now they're back home against this DePaul team. I think a DePaul team they're capable of getting back on track against here. And plus, when you look at it, DePaul beat Villanova 75-65 when these teams played a month ago. But I think Villanova comes back and gets them tonight. I think this does line up pretty well for Villanova tonight coming into this game. Keep in mind, we do have some key issues here in terms of the personnel for DePaul. It looks like they've got a couple questionables for tonight with both Jalen Terry and Nick Ongenda, both in doubt to play tonight for the Blue Demons. So I'm laying it with Villanova here. Like I say, I'm not usually a bigger favorite type of guy, but in this spot here tonight, I like the Wildcats here, -9.5. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not going to lay it with Villanova, but I'm not really rushing to DePaul. I'd look at this under. I've leaned it. I don't think I do. One thing, DePaul too. They played a little bit better, but Villanova should eat them on the glass. This team's down at the very, very bottom, and I've seen them play. They're not very big and get beat up down there. Just right now, I don't like. I'm not going to lay points with Villanova. I thought they've looked better. They had that close game. Was it on Saturday where they lost, where they were dogs? But yeah, I'm not going to lay a number here at all. But I lean under.
All right, we got Florida, Alabama, SEC action here. Alabama, 9.5, 10-point home favorites, 150 the total. Total's going up, I agree. And I know with Florida, this is a team that we sometimes don't always trust offensively, but I think there's reasons to think we're going to see points here in this one because this is a lower total by Alabama's standards. And Florida, if they could just get their offensive execution to be a little bit better, like this team does play an up and down brand of basketball. And eventually I think they're going to have some higher scoring affairs. I'm hoping tonight's that night. I'm on Florida here as well, Connor. I've been very reluctant to step in front of Alabama. We know how good they've been the last couple of months. But you start to look at Florida, I'm seeing signs of them coming together, getting better late in the season. The win against Tennessee was very impressive. At Kentucky, in a tough spot, they ended up losing, but falling just short, losing by 5. And when you have Alabama here, you've got at Auburn, you've got at Tennessee coming up. Bigger games than this one. Auburn's your rival. Tennessee's one of the best teams in the conference, both on the road. This has got that double look ahead potentially for Alabama. And Alabama does look like after weeks and weeks and weeks where they're just crushing it and covering every point spread, there's been a market correction. 1-3 ATS their last 4 games. I think it's a few too many points. I think Florida's competitive, hangs in the number, +9.5, +10. Connor, what do you think?
This total is just, I'm surprised it's gone up, but at 150, I'm the other way here. Some of these totals where we've gone over, it seems like the last couple years or the last 4 or 5 meetings, there's just been a bunch of scoring, and that's what they're kind of going off of. All I know is Florida, in their last 12 games, they hit it once against Georgia, 82-75. Most of their games lately have been the low 130s, 128. This could get into a shootout. Florida's been okay on the road, like you talked about. The close losses, a few wins. So this was tough for me. I can't get there with the points, but I look the other way. I think even if Bama wins, gets to 80, I don't know if Florida gets 65. Their offense is just not happening lately. So I liked it. It's gone up to 150. I just haven't played it yet, but I'm looking under now.
All right, liking the under. LSU, Mississippi State. Mississippi State 9.5-point home favorites, 126. Yeah, I was looking to lay the points here because Mississippi State, they've turned it on here late in the season here. And Chris Jans is a great coach. I like this guy. Did a great job at New Mexico State when they were reeling in January and they lost those 5 games in a row. I'm like, well, that's going rough right now. But watch this team probably at some point later in the season, they're going to get their shit together and start playing better. That's what they're doing right now. They've won 3 in a row. They've covered 4 in a row. They nearly beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa to really catapult this little run that the Bulldogs have put together in the last few games. But I was hoping to lay a little cheaper price than 10. Okay, that's the issue here. I mean, we're talking 9.5, 10, but I can't make a case for LSU. I mean, LSU's been dreadful. 10 straight losses. They've covered a couple, but barely by the skin of their teeth. They covered against Bama, but they still lost by 10. Like I said, they barely got inside the number. I like the momentum of Mississippi State. Favorite or pass for me. I just wish it was a little bit of a better number. Connor, what do you think?
Quick pass. Nothing here. The number's too big. I can't lay it with Mississippi State. It's just too many for a team that is way better. They're just too slow, and I don't love their offense to run away. Even though they could cover this number, I don't want it, and I don't want LSU just right now. So this was just a quick off.
I like the way you do that. Just a quick. There you go.
Shit.
Oklahoma and Baylor. See ya. Next one. And the next one is Oklahoma and Baylor. We've got Baylor 9.5-point home favorites, 141.5 the total here. Big 12 action in this one. Baylor romping over Tech in their last game. Oklahoma getting romped by West Virginia in their last game. So you got a team off a blowout win versus a team off a blowout loss. I often try to make a case for the team off the blowout loss in this kind of situation, and that would be Oklahoma. And look, Oklahoma, earlier this season, it was a 2-point loss at home against Baylor. It was a really good effort from the Sooners in that game. The question you have to ask yourself is, do they have a better game in them? Because these last 2 games have been rough on the Sooners, but they're getting a healthy amount of points. They've been a tough out for Baylor in most of the recent meetings between these 2 teams. I'm tempted by Oklahoma. Put it this way, I'd take the points before I lay them, and I like under here as well. What do you think?
Yeah, they seem to play Baylor tough lately. This team's got to score it, though. I think they could have maybe a little bit better shooting night. We'll see against Baylor, who can get up and down at times. Because the last 2, 61 points. The home went, they kind of blew it, and then they just got blown out at West Virginia. And they need more people than Sherfield. I mean, he's the guy, but he just can't be it every single night. And they don't shoot the 3 well other than him. And Baylor's just been rolling. It's tough. It's tough to take a dog that's looked so bad lately with Oklahoma on the road. So I'll be off.
All right. Next up, we've got San Diego State, Utah State, a good matchup in the Mountain West here tonight. We've got Utah State 2.5-point home favorites, 145.5 the total in this game. Should be a good matchup here. Utah State 11-1 at home, but San Diego State is that one team in this conference that they've shown they can go on the road and get the job done. In fact, you look at the road performances. The only road loss for them was at Nevada. They've basically won every other road game, so they are capable of going on the road and being a handful here for the Utah State Aggies. But it's a hell of a matchup between these 2 teams. With us, Utah State, you're going to look to see this team push pace. They lost 85-75 to the Aztecs at Viejas Arena just a couple of weeks ago. 160 points in that game. It ended up going over the total. Revenge spot here for Utah State. You understand why the money's come in on Utah State. It's a team looking to rebound from that first loss. They've been excellent at home. They're an excellent offensive team, especially on their home floor. I definitely would go home team and over, but I like San Diego State. I actually think San Diego State still could be the better of these teams, and that's why I'm not playing Utah State, but I think I'm going to lean toward that over again, 145.5. Utah State is going to not want this game to be played in the half court. They want to score in transition. They want to push that ball down the court before San Diego State sets up that stifling half-court defense of theirs. And I think they could get the pace they want. So I prefer the total than the side. Lean Utah State, but like the over. What do you think, Colin?
That's how I feel. I think it's just the Utah State spot. for them. But San Diego State, like guys like Bradley who had such bad games, but overall I think they had more talent. Menza, Trammell. Man, it's just not easy to go their win. Utah State at home, they just shoot the rock so well. This team, it's just rains threes. It seems like not great defensively. Now I do like Utah State, but I like the over, like you talked about. I think this one is solid. I think San Diego State does have an okay defense, but it hasn't been great as teams in the past. And on the road, it hasn't been the same. So I like both Utah State and this over.
And the final game here of this marquee game segment of the Wednesday slate, UNLV, Wyoming. UNLV 3-point road favorites, 147 the total in this game. We'll see if UNLV can go on the road, which is always a big question we have with this group. They did the last time at Colorado State, 83-71. Wyoming is just, they had that win against Fresno. We were thinking maybe they're building something, and starting to get things going again, but it's win one, lose one. They get absolutely trashed by San Jose State, 84-64, the game following that. Things are continuing to be rough shape for them in terms of the injury standpoint. Foster, Ike been out for a while, and now you got Noah Reynolds, who averages 14.5 points per game, out with a concussion. So that's not good. Feels like this is a spot where UNLV can win this game, but they've also got some walking wounded that you need to be aware of going into this game as well. You've got going into this one for the Rebels. They got Jackie Johnson III questionable. They've got Victor Uwuakor questionable. Jordan McCabe questionable. So keep an eye on these for UNLV. So both teams are banged up, but there's only one team that I've got more faith in, and that's the Rebels here. So I did end up taking UNLV here as slight road favorites. Connor, what do you think?
UNLV, the better team, but you're not going to catch me laying 3 here. They could go in and win. No way. No how. They've had a time or two. They've gone into Laramie, and some of those like OT, and they've gone on to win. But that place is not a place where I want to back the Rebels at all. And I know Wyoming is just hobbling. They don't have really anything left. But at home, they still have Hunter Maldonado out there. That guy can ball. So I'll be off. I'd watch this laying with UNLV tonight.
Yeah, we'll see if they can win in Wyoming. Never an easy place to play. Wyoming, I think, it's what could have been for them, because I thought they'd be a pretty good team this year, but they've just never had their full complement available to them, and it's really put them behind the 8 ball. All right, let's get into games we have not talked about yet on this slate. Connor, we'll start with you. Games that you like that we haven't discussed yet. What do you like?
Yeah, let's get into it. I haven't bet this because the number was smaller. I know you've been on them. Is Monmouth. I just wish we got a few more. They're getting plus 3.5 there. We mentioned Wichita. I think Temple, SMU can get over the number there. Richmond, George Washington. I think that can get over 143.5. Belmont, Missouri State, under 137. We just talked about the Utah State and the over. Grand Canyon, New Mexico State was good. I had the over with Seattle. Grand Canyon's got a ton of games over lately. I'm a little leery here. It's right at 144, 145, but I think that game can get over the total. And I'm looking here, Cal Baptist plus 6.5. I know Utah Valley's been very good, but I think that game could be close with them plus 6.5. That's about it. I might have another one or two here, maybe in the extra board. Let me check my thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issues with many of those, and in fact, I really like that Grand Canyon over, and I like Monmouth. You know that. You had to have known I'd be back in Monmouth again for like the 8th straight time. It feels that way. It probably has been the 8th straight time or close to that for me on Monmouth. But yeah, I like them here in this game. Belmont, it kind of feels like I want to take Belmont here against Missouri State. Belmont has not been nearly as good as we've seen in the past, but definitely I think they could get the job done. I'm on the over with Samford and Mercer. I'm on Delaware, Richmond, George Washington. I'm on George Washington there, +1 at home, and the over, which I agree with you there. I'm on Duquesne -5.5 against George Mason. Valpo, Indiana State over. I'm on IUPUI as an ugly dog against Wright State. Wright State doesn't play defense consistently enough to want to lay 17 with them. I'm just hoping that IUPUI offense finally gets some traction going And if they do, that game could go over the total too, 148.5. Again, Wright hasn't been anything great defensively. UMass Fordham over. I like that. Furman VMI over. What else have we got? Western Carolina Wofford over. Wilmington Charleston over. As you can see, a lot of overs tonight for yours truly again. What else have we got here? I think we've got a bunch of passes here. Cal Baptist, yeah. I mean, they're taking some money. I kind of agree with that. And Cal Baptist has been not a bad road underdog this year. So I'm with you there, Connor, with Cal Baptist. I think that's about it for the main board. Added board, let me see here. Army always interests me at home. It's a little bit of a high number, but I did make a small bet there. Army -7.5 against Loyola, Maryland. I'm on Winthrop +5 against NC Asheville. I agree with the move that's being made there toward Winthrop in that game. Bryant and Albany. Anytime Bryant plays, I either take Bryant or I take the over, sometimes both, but I lean in those two directions there. Bryant should get the job done in that game. New Jersey Tech, UMBC. That game, I do like over the total a little bit as well. Charleston and Upstate. Upstate's taking money. I agree. It's getting up there, but I'd lay 4 with USC Upstate there in that game. And Lehigh Colgate over 146.5. There we go. That's everything. And we lost Conor. Oh, my goodness. We lost Conor, but we'll get him back in just a second. Utah Tech. Yeah, Utah Tech to me, +7 against Seattle. You know, they were better in their last game. That's not a bad it's not a bad call there, Clark. I lean in that direction as well. I haven't bet it, but I do lean in that direction. Jake Burns, I just mentioned. I'm actually like Winthrop there against Asheville, getting the points in that one. JB, I know Stony Brook we talked about. I'm just riding Monmouth in that game. Monmouth's been that good. They have been almost automatic for me, covering numbers and cashing tickets lately. So that is where I'm going there with that. American and Boston University from Christopher Comatini here in that one. You know, American is a really good team, and yet Boston's favored in that game, which is, I don't want to say it's shocking, but it does make you think a little bit. American won a close one against Boston. Boston's covered against American head-to-head. That's a really tough game because it makes you think why American should be worth a look there. But Boston's been a tough out for them. I lean to American, but I don't like it enough. New Hampshire, looking at that game, New Hampshire is one of those teams that against Binghamton there, the total's low, 129.5. But definitely Binghamton has had their issues offensively. They haven't broken 60 in 3 of their last 4 games. New Hampshire couldn't do anything offensively against Bryant, 46 points. And that game stayed well under. So that does kind of feel like an under game for me between those two teams. And I'd lean Binghamton. Binghamton's covered 3 straight. Binghamton, when you look at this matchup, they're not great, but I think in a game that's going to be tough for either team to find offensive traction, I'd lean to the +5.5, +6 with Binghamton there as well. There you go.
Anything else?
New Mexico State, we mentioned them over with Grand Canyon. I think Connor and I both like that. I lean to the New Mexico State side as well. Grand Canyon's not been automatic on their home floor this year. So I think New Mexico State might be worth the look there. North Carolina and Chattanooga. I'm telling you what, Daryl Turner, Chattanooga, I had high hopes for that Mocs team coming into this season. They have not met my expectations. Not even close, Chattanooga. They're on a bad run right now. They're 1-6 straight up. 1-6 against the spread their last 7 games. Citadel's not very good, but I'm not laying that many with Chattanooga. And Citadel's given Chattanooga problems, the meetings they played each other last year. So I'd actually look at Citadel there, as ugly as it is.
A few others. Yeah, Jack talked about Grand Canyon just been over machine, which has been weird. No blacks here. They just gone way over the number. I think Clark mentioned how Utah Tech's been better on the road.
Yep.
And they're getting 7. So,
yep.
And Seattle has just been a free fall a little bit. Now, I think 3 of those 4 losses that they've had were on the road, but they've been struggling and need a win. But yeah, and I like that over. It's just, at 150 wasn't my favorites, but I think you can get over the total.
So I've called out Hofstra ever since, or I called out Hofstra after they lost to Towson, and I was on Towson in that game. You know what they've done since then? And we'll end on this. This is the last game, Hofstra Northeastern. We have two people asking about that. And ever since I called them out, they've gone 5-0 straight up in ATS. So they've played a lot better. They're also both teams trending over. So that total's moved up. I am on that over with Hofstra and Northeastern. I forgot to mention that. I am on over 142 with Hofstra and Northeastern. The money's come in on Hofstra. I'm not stepping in front of Hofstra right now. They're playing their best basketball. They're winning games. They're covering numbers. They're capable of beating up this Northeastern team that's not very good. All apologies to Matt Channing, former Northeastern player, but it's up to 8 now. So yeah, you've missed the best of the number if you like Hofstra there. Southern Illinois in that one, we'll answer that quickly. I'd actually lean UIC. I don't trust Southern Illinois laying that many points in that game. I know UIC's had a tough season, but that's just a few too many for my liking. And St. Bonaventure at home, it's either St. Bonaventure or pass for me.
Yeah, the Bonnies, they're just laying a number today.
Yeah, they're laying a few too many for my liking, St. Bonaventure in that game, but I'm not in a rush to take LaSalle. Even though LaSalle's playing a little bit better. That was a nice win for LaSalle, their last game. Give them credit. They played a lot better. So I'm pumping the brakes on taking Bonnie, but it's Bonnie or pass at home, laying that 6.5 against LaSalle. And we mentioned Colgate and we mentioned Temple. Connor likes the over in the Temple game. I like the over in the Colgate game. I don't think either of us have a strong take on the side. All right, we got to get ourselves out of here. We got best bets coming up. Hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. Thanks for the questions. Best bets coming up right after we hear from Manscaped and Southtown 101. Southtown 101, when you're in San Antonio, Texas, stop in. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke, Southtown 101, manscaped.com, promo code PubSports, 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com using the promo code PubSports. All right, best bets to wrap it up for this Wednesday edition. Connor, what do you like for best bet?
There's a ton of totals. This one's tough. But give me Wichita at home. I think they win. -1.5. I think they get the job done. And also, if you like Utah State, get in now, because I am too. There's a lot of 2.5s. There's 3s now on the board. I think they get it done at home, like we talked about. Just want to mention that.
All right, good stuff. Best bets there for Connor on this one. Well, it's rebound time. We had a nice little streak going. That came to an abrupt end last night. No thanks to NC State.
I had a good night. Me too. I mean, Akron played their worst game, undefeated at home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And yet a lot of the other bets were good. Exactly right. That's the way it is sometimes.
The way it goes.
All right. That's the way it goes. Fucking way she goes sometimes. That's exactly it. For my best bet for this card, I'm just there's a bunch of I got to make up my mind here. Let's go with Elon. We hadn't talked Elon. I actually like Elon. Elon's been excellent to me. They've just been a covering machine lately against North Carolina A&T. I'm going to go right back to the Elon Phoenix in that game against North Carolina A&T, getting 4.5 in that game. It's one of these teams that early in the season they couldn't buy a victory. They weren't playing very well. They've suddenly won 3 in a row, covered 3 in a row, and they're on a longer-term 6-2. They're 6-1 rather against the spread streak. A&T's lost 2 in a row coming into this matchup. I think this is a game that Elon can win. It was an 80-71 win for A&T last month between these two teams. You've got an Elon team surging, playing their best ball in revenge. Catching points on the road, Elon plus 4.5 against North Carolina. A&T, best bet for me on this Wednesday card. That'll wrap it up. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Hit the like button on the way out, and we'll be back tomorrow for another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show for Thursday. For Conor, Mac, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Let's cash some tickets. Enjoy the games and good luck, and we will see you tomorrow on Thursday for another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show right here on Pub Sports Radio.
Palooza 2 on the horizon. We're going to have live shows popping off in the Southbound 101. We're going to have a poker tournament, a par 3 golf tournament, UFC San Antonio on the Saturday night. A lot of excitement. Palooza 2, baby.